I have to admit something. About 2 weeks ago, if you'd asked me what a turbine generator was, I probably would have said, I don't know, just a really big generator? Because in my world, a generator has always been a big diesel engine spinning an alternator. I've spent more than 20 years around them, including 1 megawatt units, so I figured I'd had a pretty good idea what a big generator looked like. So when I kept hearing people say turbine generator, I just assumed it was another industrial term I hadn't run across yet. Then I saw a picture of one, and my first thought was, oh, that's obviously AI generated. Imagine one after the other of what looked exactly like jet engines just sitting in a field, not attached to airplanes, not inside a hangar, just sitting there making electricity for AI data centers. And my first thought wasn't, wow, that's amazing. It was, what the hell am I looking at? Because if that's actually a jet engine, why is it on the ground? How does it end up making electricity? And why would a data center need an entire field full of these things? None of it made any sense, so I did what I always do. I went down the rabbit hole. The first thing I learned is these aren't little backup generators. The internet calls them aeroderivative turbine packages, and depending on the model, they can crank out somewhere around 40 to 50 megawatts. Now, I've stood next to a 1 megawatt diesel before, and that frickin' thing was huge, so now I'm thinking, okay, this isn't really a generator anymore. This is basically a portable power plant. And honestly, I was expecting this thing to be ridiculously complicated, but the basic idea, it's surprisingly simple. It's still basically a jet engine. Air goes in, fuel goes in, fire happens, something spins, and instead of using all of that spinning energy to shove an airplane through the sky, they use it to make electricity. Then my next assumption fell apart. I'm looking at what is obviously a jet engine, so I'm thinking, well, obviously it burns jet fuel. Nope, natural gas. The same basic natural gas that's feeding somebody's furnace, their water heater, maybe even their stove. And I just remember sitting there thinking, how in the world does that work? Because now I'm picturing this former aircraft engine breathing the same gas that's heating somebody's jacuzzi. But I still had what I thought was a pretty reasonable question. Why not just build the world's biggest diesel generator? Hospitals use giant diesels, data centers already use giant diesels, so why are we dragging retired jet engines out of the desert? It didn't make any sense to me. And then I started finding the reasons. These things make an incredible amount of power for their size. They can be delivered in pieces, bolted together, and brought online a whole lot faster than waiting years for the grid to catch up. And this part surprised me. They're even serviced almost like airplane engines. When one needs major work, they can pull the whole engine out, drop another one in, and send the first one off to be rebuilt. And I just remember thinking, that's basically a NASCAR pit stop for a power plant. So then another thought popped into my head. Jet engines are supposed to be incredibly efficient, or at least I always thought they were. So I started wondering how much of that natural gas actually becomes electricity. And when I looked it up, I immediately had another question. Where's the rest of it going? Because energy doesn't just disappear. It has to be going somewhere, and that's when I found out. Apparently a whole lot of it leaves as heat, which of course immediately made me wonder, can you do anything with that? Can you capture it? Can you turn it into more electricity? Can you somehow get a second bite of the apple? And before I knew it, I was halfway down another rabbit hole. I had to wrangle my squirrels back in. Different video, Robert, stay on target. So then I started wondering what actually comes out of the exhaust. CO2, nitrogen oxides, like what are the neighbors breathing when you've got a whole field of these things running? So I started digging into it, and pretty quickly I realized I was about to disappear down yet another rabbit hole, because natural gas still burns. Cleaner doesn't mean nothing comes out the back. And then my brain did what it always does. Natural gas, methane. And if you know anything about methane, you already know exactly where my brain went. So in my completely unscientific opinion, we've basically built one enormous, really loud fart factory. Loud and gassy. Sounds familiar. And one turbine is one thing. A whole field of them running 24 hours a day, that's a different conversation. Then I started reading about the noise. These places already have enclosures, silencers, and giant sound walls, and people are still complaining about this constant roaring and low frequency rumbling. In fact, one site spent something like $7 million on a sound wall, and apparently the neighbors nicknamed it the Timu sound wall because it barely did anything. Nothing like buying your sound attenuation wall on wish.com. And then I learned something else. Low frequency sound isn't always something you hear. Sometimes you feel it. Just ask whales and elephants. So when I picture a whole field of these machines running, I don't picture one generator humming in the background. I picture a bunch of retired jet engines running together while somebody a few hundred yards away is trying to get some sleep. That's where this stopped being just a cool engineering story for me, because somebody always lives on the other side of a solution. And that's when I finally asked the real question. Why does this thing even need to exist? Because the more I looked at it, the more it felt like a workaround. You know what it reminded me of? Portable classrooms from the 1980s. Schools don't bring in portable classrooms because they were better. They bring them in because the students are already there and the permanent building isn't. And I guess that's what these turbine sites started feeling like to me. Portable classrooms, but for electricity, which immediately made me wonder, what the heck is the actual problem? Why are we dragging retired jet engines out of the desert just to keep up? And I think that's a question worth answering, just maybe not today. Because if plugging into the grid were quick and easy, why would somebody go through all of the time, money, and hassle of building their own power plant? These data centers need an unbelievable amount of electricity. The problem is they need it now, not 5 years from now, not whenever the utility gets around to it, now. So instead of waiting for the power, they brought the power to them, and that's the part I never saw coming. I spent more than 20 years around generators and electricity, and I had no idea this world even existed. I thought I was trying to understand the machine, but I'm starting to think why we need it is the more interesting story. And I keep thinking about the life that engine has had. At one point, maybe it flew 400 people across the Pacific. Maybe it hauled cargo halfway around the world. Maybe it carried an army tank into a war zone. Heck, maybe one of these engines even flew under Air Force One. And then one day, it gets retired, parked out in the desert, and you'd think, well, I guess that's the end of its story. Except it wasn't. Somebody dragged it back out, rebuilt it, bolted it to a generator, and hooked it up to the same natural gas that's lighting up somebody's barbecue grill. And now it's helping power an AI data center so somebody can ask a chatbot if penguins have knees. That's one heck of a second act. So after all of that, what is a turbine generator? It's a jet engine that instead of pushing an airplane through the sky, spins a generator and makes electricity. And honestly, that part makes sense to me now. What still doesn't make sense is why we need entire fields of them sitting next to data centers in the first place. Because the more I looked at these things, the more it started feeling like portable classrooms for electricity. They show up because the permanent building isn't ready. But are they actually temporary? Or are we going to come back 10 years from now and the jet engines are still sitting there behind the Timu sound wall and nobody ever built the school? That's what I want to figure out next. And if you work with these machines or live close enough to hear them, I want to know what this story looks like from your side and tell me what I missed. Oh, and I hate to be the one to tell you this, but I think your subscribe button is defective, and I could tell by the look on your face you don't believe me, and that's okay. Go ahead, hit it. See, I told you it was broken. Your shit's busted, yo. Oh, look at it. Go hit it.